coming to you with a process video of putting together my March my March project life. I've got week in the life on the brain. In my 9x12 monthly project life album. So something you may have already seen on my Instagram channel is what I've done to document the pandemic and how I've made decisions about that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this video when I'm putting everything back together. But in the meantime, I wanted to work on everything else, the other things that happened this month. And so if you remember, this is what February looked like. So a 3x3 spread, a 6x12 insert, and then ending with a 9x12 full-size photo. So then on the back, I needed to start with a full-size 9x12 photo, or I could have done a collage or something like that, but I had a photo that I really loved. So I'm going to take these pages out of the album, and I've got my photos all printed. In most cases, I've figured out what cards and things I want to use. So I'm going to work on that and sort of do a voiceover while I go through that process. All right, so the first thing I'm starting with is my first page for March. And so it is this big 9x12 photo of a few daffodils that I found on my walk one morning. And I blew it up to 9x12, and I'm so glad that I did, because it's kind of the perfect opener for this crazy month. I added the "Here's What's Happened This Month" card at the bottom and typed some journaling out and printed it on there. And then I'm adding the March, I think that I want to do the March cork word there. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to add some sort of an embellishment sort of right in that little spot there. And tried some of the wood veneer, but I don't really like the way that those are. And so I ultimately decided to go with one of the chipboard hearts. Here I ripped my cork word. They're pretty thin. Those are from the One Little Word add-on. They were a One Little Word add-on this year, and so I have those in my stash. And they're pretty good size, but they're really thin. And so using the tape runner, I wrecked it, and then had to use some wet glue to put it back together. But you totally can't tell that it's split. So I ultimately decided to use that sticker, the striped heart chipboard, and you'll see that at the end. So then I'm working on a 6x8 insert that has just a couple more 3x4 cards with sentiments on them that I really wanted to include, and photos that I really wanted to get into the album. And so spring will come and so will happiness. Hold on, life will get warmer, I thought was a great quote to include. And just summarized how March was so insane at the start of this global pandemic, and sort of reaching the US. And so what I'm doing here is a little trick that I learned from my friend Tashiana, and I'll link to her Instagram and YouTube below. But she makes these cool little hinges, and so it's hidden between the cards. And so that's what I was doing there. And now just adding some word phrase stickers from the sheet that was included in the Stories by the Month kit, and deciding on sort of embellishments and where those are going to go. And I really wanted to use up, my goal with each of these months is to use as much of the kit as I can. And so I'm really maybe using more embellishment than I might normally, but not really. I don't feel like I'm going overboard or anything. So on the back side, I've got a photo of my new cleaning routine using the spring cleaning chipboard that I had already saved and put in a pocket there, and talking about how much extra cleaning, both of our hands and our spaces and surfaces, we are doing as a result of sort of trying to keep the keep the COVID-19 out of our house. I have a photo there of our dog, and at the beginning of social distancing, sort of visiting with our neighbors through their second story window, and the dogs were like really excited to see each other. And so the Remember This card is just going to hold that story. And what I'm writing about here is, about the eagles. And so we had two bald eagles that were nesting in the communication tower near our house for a few days. The osprey eventually came in and scared them away. But I really wanted to tell that story because it was like we were completely obsessed with these birds for a few days. And now we're pretty sad that they're not actually here anymore. And so just writing out some of these stories, handwritten on the cards, just for fast, easy journaling, and something a little bit different because this is the month that I started the sort of quarantine pandemic documenting within Project Life, and so all of that is typed journaling, and so just wanting something a little bit different inside the actual pages of other things that I included for this month. And, I think that's important. The pandemic is not the only thing that happened in March. In fact, as you're about to see, it was my 40th birthday. So this was a page I had set up using the Celebrate Story Kit leftovers that I had. And we had a trip to the mountains planned with our friends. We had rented a house down there, and it all got canceled. And so we were home, and I had to document my birthday in a very different way than I thought I documented a very different story than what I thought I was going to be telling. So yeah, I stuck with the Celebrate Story Kit because I still thought I'm still celebrating that I'm turning 40. I'm still celebrating my birthday. It just looks and feels a little bit different than what I had expected. And so I used up the rest of those pieces, or at least a lot of them, on this page. This is one of the new 9x12 page protectors that Allie released as part of the Week in the Life release, I believe. And so it's 3 4x6s paired with a 3x4. So it's 3 3x4s and 3 4x6s on both sides. And so it was perfect for this because I took a lot of photos of what we did on my birthday and how we celebrated. A few too many because I am making a flip up here because I had a few more photos that I wanted to include. I typically don't do a ton of flip ups in my Project Life albums. I tend to reserve that more for smaller albums. I don't know why, but I wanted to include all these photos, so I wanted them all in here. Here I'm trying to figure out if I can put this big star embellishment on the top of this photo will be on the top of the flip up. And ultimately I realize that I can't because when it flips, it will like bend against the top of the page protector. And so I decide not to go with the stars. I think actually I used one of the acetate stars and then the rest of them go into my stash. And instead I decide to embellish with some of the chipboard from the Celebrate Story Kit. And again, just sort of trying to figure out which pieces are the right pieces. I end up going with the gold cheers, which feels very celebratory, and the pink joy down on the bottom. And then siphoning through some of the cards to decide what I want to do. And I'm going to do journaling on 2 of them. And then on that one little one with the sort of swishy paint swatches, I'm going to stamp out Hello 40. And those wood stamps are stamps that I got from Stampin' Up! A long time ago, and I still use them all of the time. They're kind of the perfect size, and I really like them for something really small when I need to stamp that out. So the 2 journaling cards that I've got here, I am journaling one story about all of our canceled plans and sort of how things changed in terms of what we thought my birthday weekend would look and feel like. And the other card, I'm really talking about the ways that people showed up for me on my birthday and just how grateful I am for everyone who sent a thoughtful text or dropped off a birthday present, or my nieces and my sister-in-law came by and decorated my front door, and the girls made me handmade cards, and it was really, really kind of wonderful, and it made me feel super special. No one had to do anything because we were all on sort of lockdown and a stay-at-home order here in Maryland at that time. And people just showed up, and it was really, really nice. And it's certainly a birthday I will not forget anytime soon because of the pandemic, but also because of the way everyone in my life made me feel and how wonderful that was. So those are sort of the stories that I'm telling on these cards, and trying to, I may have Maybe should have typed them out because I had a lot more to say than I thought I did when I started writing. But it all fit and it's fine. It's not all going to be perfect, and that's okay. So I'm going back to that 6x8 insert now that I've done the journaling on that 3x4 card and adhering that, and then deciding to add another word phrase sticker from the kit just to round that out. Trying to decide if I want something on the front of that March Memories card or not. And ultimately I decide, I think you'll see in a second. Oh, yeah, before I do that, I have that card set aside because I still want to do something with it, but I didn't know what yet. But because the 6x8 is an insert, I'm looking through my older Stories by the Month stamps here. These are the little 3x4 stamps that come in the kits, and trying to decide, there's a couple others in there too, some week in the life. I think this is either a week in the life or a day in the life kit. And trying to decide what I want to stamp on my Avery Index tab there to use as a page turn on the 6x8 insert. I do try to include those on each, and I'm trying out a bunch of different stories. This actually led me to creating my stamp index. So if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that one of the things I did within the last couple of weeks was create a stamp index for all my Ali Edwards stamps that includes an image of each of the stamp sets and all of the sentiments included that I put in my story planner so that I can just quickly flip through that rather than physically going through each of my stamp sets and trying to find the perfect or a good enough stamp. And here I'm just adding a little flip, a page turn that is, it says "This Moment" from Ellie Studio. Is from a previous Ellie Studio kit. And just adding that so that it indicates that there is a flip up there. Getting my tab all ready to add to my 6x8 page. I love those Avery Index tabs. I actually think I decided that the stamping wasn't quite good enough, so I flipped it. Don't be afraid to do that, right? You can flip them. They're double-sided, and so if it's not working out or you change your mind about what you want to say or the stamp set that you want to use, don't be afraid to just flip it, and you'll see it, you can't even tell because it folds in on itself. So the mistake is on the inside, and no one will ever know. I probably won't even know. I already forgotten that happens. And so, yep, just adding those, putting the March Memories flip up card back in its place. And I thought about adding an Avery Index tab or some sort of something to the bottom of that card, but it's pretty, because of the way the paper hinge is, you can tell that it's a flip up is what I'm trying to say. And so ultimately what I decide to do is put a stamp underneath the March Memory, some sort of sentiment or word phrase thing. And what I decide on is, I believe I decided on around here. Yeah. All right. So here are my pages for March that are, again, not pandemic documentation. So big full 9x12 page, and then I used the "Here's What Happened This Month" card. Again, I am using the March 2020 Stories by the Month primarily for this. And then the cork word March here is from the One Little Word release this year. And then this also uses more of the March kit. Just photos of outside. My journaling is a little bit about just outside time, right? And I loved the "Spring will come and so will happiness, hold on, life will get warmer" card. And then I added an Avery Index tab here that says "This is totally worth celebrating." And that's from the Celebrate Story stamp. And then on the back, a little bit about sort of a cleaning routine and how much we've been cleaning because of the germs and more cleaning than normal. And then a little bit about social distancing with our neighbor. It's hard to see in the photo from here, but our neighbor's here with her 2 small kids and their dog. And so Ruby was chatting it up with their dog, Holly. And then for my final page is all about my 40th birthday. If you remember from previous videos, I had pieces of the Celebrate kit, story kit that I wanted to save and use for this occasion. My birthday plans significantly changed this month. And so this is just a little bit of the photos of what ended up happening versus what we had planned on happening. I did a little flip up here as well as a little flip up on the 3x4 here just to include a little bit of extra. I may go in at some point and do a little bit of journaling about this stuff, but I kind of covered it in my cards, so I may or may not. For right now, it's just fine. So let's get this in the album and see how it's going to work. And I said we'd go over the my pandemic documentation in this video too. So it's January, February, and here we go, March. All right, so I'm in love with this photo. Daffodils are one of the only flowers I like. I have a hard time with flowers, and the scent of flowers they don't make me very happy like most people. And so daffodils are among my favorites, or daffodils are my favorite. And so this was actually just a photo in someone's yard that I took on one of my morning walks. And I love it blown up the size. Okay, so sandwiched in between, so here's my 9x12 starting off the month. Here are my pages for the end of the month. I may move this up front. I don't know. Probably not. But what I decided to do for my pandemic documentation and sort of our stay-at-home practices and quarantine and what this whole season looks like for many of us, all of us really, in some way, shape, or form, is to do that inside my Project Life album monthly. So each month we'll have a series of things. So one of those things are fact-based timeline, national and global, well, sort of local and global timeline things. So I started documenting on Thursday, March 5th. And this is all just a 6x12 template that I made for myself in Photoshop. And yes, it's word heavy because it's supposed to be. It calls out sort of different things that are happening in our state, really big national headlines, some of the things that happened in New York and California, things that happened globally. There's something in here about Italy, surpassing China, sort of in number of cases. And what I did here, I think I'm going to repeat this at the top of every month. But this is Allie's free word art that she released related to the pandemic and COVID-19. I will link to the blog post where she has that available in the description below. But I made this little card, and this is all just one page printed out on my printer, my photo printer, all on photo paper, large photo paper. And so I made this just in Photoshop and used it. On the front are some digital stamps from Allie, a little bit of journaling sort of that I did at the beginning of the month, and a photo of my husband and I with my pup on my lap watching one of our governor's press conferences. And so that's this. I included some photos and screenshots and things like that, a little bit of embellishment. And then on the back is more information. So this goes all the way through March 30th. And then some photos that I took, one at our grocery store of the empty paper good aisle, and our gas prices at our local gas station that are dropping significantly. Then inside I also included, this is just one of those 3x3, 9x12 pages that I cut down into a strip to include some of the funny memes that have been bringing me joy and making me laugh throughout this time. With an Avery Index tab that says the lighter side of life from the Light Story Kit. A little bit of journaling about that, and then front and back. And then the third page or the third sort of thing that I included are more screenshots. So some of them are bigger memes that I couldn't fit in. It's only one of Friends meme. Friends is my favorite show, so I had to include that, but it wouldn't shrink down to a 3x3 nicely, so I just included it here. And then I've been using the Apple News app for some curated news headlines, and one of the things that they have in there, I believe, is either from the Washington Post or the New York Times, is this sort of tracker. So these are both the national statistics and global statistics on March 15th. Some headlines that I'm including, some images about social distancing, a little like poem that I liked that someone shared on Instagram, and then more headlines on the back. This was the day that we went into an official stay-at-home order, which was March 30th. And so our local state government sent out a public safety alert that went to all of our devices. So I screenshot that. A tweet that someone shared. This is March 27th, so you can see how the numbers have changed, both nationally and globally. And then I had to go to a doctor's appointment on March 31st, and this came up on the Waze app after we got our alert, our public safety alert. So basically a warning of like, follow local travel guidance and only drive if you must. So this is all sort of the factual stuff that's happening. The next section that I included are the things, my own personal thoughts, reactions, feelings about things as we process different things. So this starts on March 12th, which was the day that we had our first confirmed case of COVID-19 in our county. So it really started to hit home for us. And this was the week that we closed schools, and really our government took a lot of precautions early on. And so what I did here, this is another Photoshop template. This is all just printed on 12 by 12 cardstock that I trimmed down to be just 9 by 12-ish. And it's a template that I have in Photoshop so that I can use it every month. And then what I did include, these are actual photos that I printed in 3x3 size, and underneath of here is just a little box template for where the photos should go. So these are just photos from throughout our month. And then I did a little bit of light embellishment on them. But this is basically like what we're doing most days. It's not every day that I'm journaling, but I'm journaling. And in April, I think I've done a little bit less journaling than when this first happened. But these are sort of thoughts, feelings, what we're doing, Zoom meetings with friends, dropping off care packages, more Zoom meeting, treating ourselves to drive-through ice cream, playing lots of games. Along the top, I used the Story of Right Now stamp from the March Stories by the Month to just stamp that out across the top. And then in the back is just more of the same. So playing online Mario Kart with friends, and yeah, so that's how I plan to document however long this goes on and remains a story that affects our lives. So definitely for April, we'll have some inserts like this, probably for May, at least. And there's no way for us to know how long it will go on, but that is how I feel good documenting this unique, once in a lifetime, hopefully, once in a lifetime experience. Yeah, I just wanted it to be, it's such a huge part of our lives that I didn't want it to be separate from the stories, the place where I tell the stories of our months and the stories of our everyday life. So yeah, if you have any questions, please leave me a comment or send me a message and let me know. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to consider subscribing or giving this video a thumbs up, they'd both be much appreciated. Hope you are well. Take care. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.